Well, as my friend Alex Ascroft says, let's just stick to the facts that we know. The Singer Model 12 was well into production by the early 1860s, and prototypes coming online well before the mass marketing of the machine in 1865. Its shape and size was altered until the designers were happy with it and patents were sorted. Isaac Singer had made mistakes with some of his earlier machines and learned a bitter lesson as manufacturers like Wilson and Cox stormed ahead into the marketplace, making even more errors. The Singer 12 carried on it with many modifications over the following years, slowly improving until it was completely replaced with the newest models near the end of the Victorian period. The Singer 12, or Singer New Family Sewing Machine, hit the main market towards the end of the American Civil War around 1864 to 1865 and lasted right up until 1902. It was in production for nearly 40 years. And in that period of production, along came this gorgeous 1885 model, which now belongs to Mary Kline. And if you don't remember that contest or you're new to this channel, let me take you over to a quick recap of kind of what happened with that contest. Okay, I was kind of trying to get it queued up there so we were all set. So going over to kind of a little recap of this contest that we had done. Let me kind of lock in on this character right here, which, like I said, is kind of a former pirate that also became a steamboat captain. And between Hans from Norway, who serves as a moderator on my Facebook business page, and Bill O'Rourke, who also serves in the same capacity as a moderator slash editor, I'm going to first of all share with you kind of their reflections of what Mary Kline had written for this contest. And then I'll actually let Mary Kline read the piece to you herself, as we had done at a follow-up premiere. Okay, so here we go. I'm hoping we don't get a commercial, but I think we will. On the phone, I hope we can.
Good grammar and spelling are important.
Well, we almost got on it.
If you want to write essays that inspire, messages that forge brighter connections.
Again, my connection might be kind of wonky here. We'll have to see. Not about your connection, but the computer's wonky. Hey, Hans. Hi, Hans. This is Scott. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Okay. My signal kind of dropped off here, so I started getting nervous. It said bad connection. I had to reboot my phone real quick. But I'm excited to get your impressions of the contest entries. Again, I was just sharing with the viewers that we had 4 entries. We had one from Sunny, Debbie, Mary, and Barbie, and just wanted to get your thoughts on that and see who you ended up picking.
Well, Scott, I work as a lecturer and I've been a teacher, so I'm used to do assessment for my students. So, but I'm not teaching lyrics or writing. I'm more into the technical agronomy stuff. But I made a checklist of the 4 persons taking part in the contest, and I think they are all qualified subscribers, and I think they all have done a great job in incorporating the year 1883. They've been creative, they have been clever, and they have also taking into account the vote 43 against 3 for Kissimmee against Allendale. So I think they've done a great job mentioning this year 2 years before this fine Singer 12 was made. And also think they have included the prospect of winning the contest in their text. So, but I have a winner, a person that I think deserves this machine. Should I mention the name, Scott? Or
yeah, absolutely. Let everybody know where your pick was, because then I'm gonna reach out to Bill afterwards and get his pick, and then again I've given him kind of the deciding vote, so I'll let him know where your vote was and see where his vote is, and then we'll agree on a winner. So.
Well, my winner, Scott, is Mary Kline. I think she has my checklist is all. I marked every point in my checklist for her. She included. Well, actually, she's writing up about the steamboat Mary Bell, and Mary is the winner. Describing, telling about the boat Mary Bell. That's very fascinating. She also, what I also liked, she actually mentioned both you, Scott, Bill, and me in the text.
I saw that.
The names were all there.
I thought that was really
cool. Names were all there.
Yeah.
So of course, that was well. We're not supposed to take any bride as the judges, but that was a kind of a bride that affected me. I think that was very well written, and I didn't count the words, but it's more than 100 words, and well, that's my pick, Scott.
I totally agree. I enjoyed her piece as well, and while it wasn't quite as good as a box of chocolates, I liked how she mentioned you and Bill and myself as well. That was really cool.
So it was in fact a blending of fact and fiction.
Yeah. I think all the writers really did well, but for me as well, Mary Kline definitely stood out of the pack. I thought her writing was great as well. So, well, at any rate, I think you're traveling today, aren't you?
Well, I think I'm 7 hours ahead of you, Scott. So it's soon getting evening here, but I'm on my way to a job meeting tomorrow. I have 3-4 hours drive, so it was. I think it's okay to tell your viewers about my decision, and of course you, Bill, living in Florida, has the final vote here. But I found out I've been visiting the United States several times, and I've been in Florida 3 times, and I actually passed this city. I think it's along the Ronald Reagan Turnpike in Florida.
Okay.
So I drove there with a buddy, I think in 2006. Oh, no, sorry, 2014. So it's 6 years ago. So, but I've been there in Florida 3 times. I passed this city, so that was also interesting to hear 4 nice stories about the place I actually passed on this turnpike. So
it's fabulous. That's fabulous.
Yes.
Wow. All right, well, I'll let you get back to your evening. And I had actually told the folks as I was calling you, I said, I hope we can connect with Hans, because I know that there's a 7-hour difference, and I hope you have a great rest of the evening. And I think you made a real solid pick. I think Mary Kline is fantastic. I'll be interested to see what Bill has to say. So you be safe, my friend, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Scott, and also a warm hello to all your viewers from Norway. So, and we get in contact later, Scott, and I hope I'm really looking forward to hear what is Bill's pick. so we can find a person deserving this very fine, beautiful machine. So.
Sounds great. Sounds great. All right, my friend. I think we'll probably be doing this premiere soon enough as far as the live feed. So just keep watch for it, and hopefully you're able to join when we're on this officially. So.
Sure, I will do that, Scott. So.
All right. Take care, Hans. Thanks, my friend.
Okay.
Yep. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Well, hopefully you were able to hear that well. We had a real good connection with Hans, and he has made his choice of Mary Kline, and I'll be giving Bill a call now, and we'll see what Bill's impression is. So let me see if I can get, hopefully get Bill on the phone. I'm in an area that's kind of unpredictable as far as cell signals, so I'm hoping that we will be successful. I hope so. Just bear with me for a second here.
And this again is a recap of the contest that has already been completed, and as you'll hear, I have some difficulty in finally connecting with Bill because of the
hopefully
problems with my phone, but we eventually do it, so be patient as we kind of recap this deliberation that the three of us made as judges.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to put it on speaker.
With finally selecting Mary Kline.
Hey, Bill, let me call you
as
right
the
back.
winner.
I apologize. I forgot to put it on speaker before I dialed it, and I have to do that first. So let me give you a jingle back real quick. All right. Thanks, my friend. Bye. This new phone is fabulous in some respects, and it's frustrating in other respects. And one of them is if I dial a call and then I want to have it on speaker, it won't let me do it unless I hit a certain button. It's a silly thing. Hey, Bill, it's me again. I think I hit the right button this time, so let me put you on speaker, and hopefully just got done chatting with Hans, and we had a real good connection, so hopefully we can maintain a good connection with you as well. So yeah, I mean, we're just doing this wrap up with the major contest. We had 4 very good entries, one from Sunny, Debbie, Mary, and Barbie, and I just got off the phone with Hans, and he shared a number of different insights, and then ultimately said, Scott, I got to be honest with you, my pick is Mary Kline. So I said, I totally get it. I loved her writing piece as well, and it was neat that she incorporated, Hans and you and myself into the piece as well, which I thought was really clever. So where do the cards fall for you, Bill? What you read all the pieces? What are your thoughts?
Well, I read them all. I thought they were all fabulous. I thought there was a lot of imagination in all of them. And kind of like you guys discussed, I led toward Mary Kline because of all the little things that she put in the story. That's not to take away from any of the other stories. They were all fantastic. I could visualize them in my head as I read them, and I love that kind of thing. But when it all came down to the end, I thought that Mary Kline did a fabulous job with the writing. And again, not to take anything away from anybody else, everything was fabulous. It was the toughest choice to make, but I led toward Mary Kline also.
I think we're all three unified on that front. I enjoyed reading them as well, and kind of like you, as I read them, and I had a lot of dreams about steamboats. Yeah, I mean, it's just the visualization, and we used to talk about in radio, and I know you were involved in radio as well, you know, the theater of the mind. And as I read their words and I could visualize, I've never been to Kissimmee, Florida before. Interestingly, Hans mentioned that he traveled probably about 6 years ago to the U.S. on one of his trips, and he went through the Florida area, and he passed right through the Kissimmee, Florida area. So he was just a hiccup away from you, not knowing you at that time. I'm sure if it happened now, he would probably in some way try to reach out, but yeah, 6 years ago he was down there. I said, well, gosh, you're from Norway, and I've never even been to Kissimmee, Florida. What's up with that? So I thought that was.
I've been here 7 years, so he would have been welcome to come by. Had we known about each other 6 years ago, that would have been great. For folks who don't know, Kissimmee, Florida is right near Orlando. Everything on a Google map says it takes me 34 minutes to get to Orlando, Florida from here.
Oh.
So we're close to all the theme parks and all the rest of that. It's really a fantastic area. As I was reading everybody's stories, the thing that kind of impressed me most was how everybody mixed fact and fiction. And
Sure.
that mixture of fact and fiction was just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal how they blended it all together. I really enjoyed this contest. I really did. And like I say, it was like pulling teeth to try to pick a winner. It was tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad we could do the contest and centered around the area that you're living in, and I've already alluded to the fact that the next major contest we give for 9,000 subscribers is going to be centered on Norway. So we're going to, in a sense, take a little trip to Norway to the area that Hans is from, and I will be giving away a Swedish Beauty as the giveaway item. Since that's so close to where Hans is located in Norway, there next to Sweden. So hopefully folks have fun with that one too. And I was just,
that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, and I was just encouraged by Hans and you. I just had that surgical procedure, and you guys jumped in and kind of rallied the troops. Things were moving kind of slow as far as entries, and with the little friendly nudge that the two of you gave folks, we ended up with 4 very solid entries, and I think the contest was really neat, and it gave everybody an appreciation. Again, having the blessing of you and Hans as moderator / editors, people want to know who you are. They want to know things about you, and I think these contests have given them a new insight and perspective and appreciation for where you live and that area. And hopefully when we do the Norway one, folks will really get enthusiastic about that neck of the woods too. So
for people that are into wildlife, I live on a nice little plot of land. It's not huge, but we have some waterways that are nearby, and this area is absolutely fabulous. I have every kind of bird you can imagine here. I've had otters in my backyard, alligators on my front yard. Again, every kind of bird. And I'm not kidding. I went outside and found a 4-foot alligator one time.
Oh my gosh.
I had to deal with that. And I have a pool in the backyard, so I didn't want them getting into the backyard. But the otter swimming around in the backyard, the raccoon coming around, and I still have the raccoon coming around every day. Squirrels, birds, you name it. This is a fabulous area. Anybody wants to retire, except for the heat, this is the place to go. Kissimmee, Florida, fantastic. And those stories just encapsulated the history and the fiction of Kissimmee, Florida, beautifully. I loved it.
Well, I appreciate your perspective, and like I said again, I think we're all on the same sheet of music here. A deep appreciation for the contributors, the writings of Sonny and Debbie and Barbie, but for me as well. I think we're all in agreement as judges for this contest. Mary's just stood out of the pack, and I'll be really excited to to get her perspective on how she's going to use this machine, and just hopefully once she receives it where she's at. I don't remember what state she's from, but at any rate, wherever she's from, I'll be sending that to her, and hopefully she'll share some pictures with us of it all set up and cranking away on some sort of project. That would be fun.
Mary is from Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania. I just took a quick look.
Oh, thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Pennsylvania.
Okay,
Yep.
so out east a little bit. Okay.
Yep.
Outstanding.
East and north.
Okay. Well, it's going to be that machine is going to have a new home out in Pennsylvania then. So that's a beautiful state. Beautiful state. All right. Well, Bill, I appreciate you so much, my friend, and I appreciate you leading us through this contest, and it's cool that we could all come to a consensus, even if we hadn't, the deciding vote would have been with you. But I think again, Mary's just stood out, and it'll be a lot of fun to get her take on finding out that she's the winner. So.
Sounds good.
Yeah, have a great rest of the day and enjoy the rest of the premiere, my friend.
You too, and thank you, Scott. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye.
All right. Yep. Bye-bye.
Well, we just had the opportunity to chat with Hans live in Norway and chat with Bill live and I'll do this just to humor him, Kissimmee, Florida, even though I'm going to continue saying Kissimmee, Florida. But at any rate, really what a pleasure to read those fantastic creative writing pieces by these three very talented authors. And that's kind of a quick recap of the premiere that led up to us announcing Mary Kline as the winner of this major contest, where she won my 1885 Singer 12K that you saw at the opening of this premiere. What I'd like to share real quick right now is Mary actually reading her story. If I can figure out which way to go with this. I think it'd be fun to actually hear her reading the story, and that way you can kind of gain an appreciation for why she was selected for the contest as a winner. So let me see if I can get to that cute part. I think I'm almost there. I hope I am. And you and me into the story as well. I liked it a lot, and it influenced me. Oh boy. See, this thing loads and then it goes back to the beginning again, so I think we're going to be stuck with a quick commercial that I'll skip by.
Let's go there.
Yep, we are.
Let's make some plans. Let's search and imagine that perfect getaway somewhere.
Bear with me for a second here.
Because when the time is right, when the heart says go, we'll be ready. Let's go there.
Let's go there. Is basically, well, you heard him. That's what he said.
All right, so now we're going to hear Mary read her
I don't think it was
story.
bribery. I think it was just a creative way of incorporating us into the story. So, but I thought you did a brilliant job, and Hans did as well, and Bill. As far as the way the story came together, how did all those pieces fall into place like that? I'm just curious, because you could have gone from so many different directions. The way I kind of framed the contest. You know, it could be, you know, it had certain facts that had to be in it, but the rest could just be malarkey. It could be fiction. So, kind of give me your...
That's what most of that is.
Yeah.
It just comes. It just floats into the head.
Yeah. So what, as you kind of reread that story before you posted it officially, what tickled you most about the story, and what did you enjoy most about the content of it? Because there was so much great content in the story.
I was really hoping you'd really enjoy that Geller's Cow Country Saloon portion of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I got thirsty for a frothy one, if you know what I mean. So. So.
And we made sure that all three of you were in there.
Yeah, it was brilliantly done. It really was, and. You know, even if it was a family effort, that's totally fine. And you were the official submitter, and we just delighted in it. We thought it was fabulous. So, what interesting fact, real fact, not the malarkey, not the fiction, but what interesting fact did you enjoy most as you kind of took this contest on, and you learned about where Bill O'Rourke calls home? What fact or what detail that ended up falling into the story did you kind of find most interesting or most surprising?
I think looking at the map, when we pulled up the map of Florida and seeing all the lakes in that area and the way they all joined together, that looked really interesting to me.
Okay, so kind of the lay of the land and just the territory that the story would have unfolded in with this steamboat captain and Mary Bell and everything else. It topographically, it looks like an interesting area then, huh?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Have you ever been down there? Have you ever visited it?
No.
So now you guys need to...
farthest,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
the farthest south I've made it was Virginia Beach for one of my sisters.
Okay. Well, you guys are going to have to make a family trip down there now and come knocking on Bill's door. And I think that would be fun. Just show up unannounced. I'll give you his address. You show up unannounced and, boom, boom, boom. Hey, Bill, we're here for a week. You got room for us? And just watch his jaw drop like, la, la. Well, he's kind of a go with the flow guy, but yeah, that would probably put him into some level of shock. So, but even if you guys had hotel accommodations, it'd be fun just to do that for kicks and giggles. But well, do you have that story near you where you would be able to share it with us?
Yes, I do.
Well, I'm going to turn the floor over to you and go ahead and give it your best read. I'm guessing you've done a little bit of practicing already, and I'm going to enjoy hearing it in your own voice. So yeah, go for it.
Okay. I started researching my genealogy as a hobby. I talked with my parents and grandparents, and they gave me lots of interesting history. One story in particular was about my great-grandmother, whom I was named after, Mary Miller. She had been a seamstress that had supposedly made Confederate uniforms. I started asking a lot more questions about her as the story was interesting. My grandmother gave me a diary of Mary's that she had saved. That diary is where I found this story. Mary was born near Louisville, and her first love was watching the steamboats and riverboats traveling up and down the river. She was so fascinated by them that she begged her way into a cook's assistant job on one of them. After years of hard work and stubborn determination, she became the first American woman to earn her master's license. This story confused me. Why would a steamboat captain sew uniforms? I truly thought the family stories were made up or misunderstood somehow. While working her way up to earning her license, she met a man named J.H. Allen, a major in the Confederacy. Ah, maybe this is where she makes uniforms. The two fell quickly in love, but it was not to last. Allen was working the river to earn enough to buy a home and settle down and start a family. Mary was still more strongly in love with the riverboats, and the two parted company. She had found out later that he hadn't gotten over her as quickly. He named his boat, the first steam freighter on the Kissimmee River, Mary Bell, his nickname for my great-grandmother. As age caught up with Mary, she was forced to retire from the riverboats. She found out that Allen had started a town, Allendale, in Florida, and she decided to go there and try to rekindle her old flame. Upon her arrival, she found he had his own freighter on the Kissimmee River and Lake, a lumber business, a general store, the home he had often talked about, and, most importantly, a wife and family. Mary set herself up as a seamstress, offering to do dressmaking, tailoring, and repairs. Upon learning of her presence in town, Major Allen hired her to make him a new captain's uniform. He knew that when word got out that she had done work for him, her success would be guaranteed. Now I understood the story of...
When you make more gifts and wows. You make more statements, keepsakes, and messes. The more you make, the more we can help. And now you can earn $5 in Michael's rewards when you spend $25 or more. Michael.
Well, that was
the uniforms.
distracting, wasn't it? Sorry.
In 1882, Mary wrote that the town council was discussing changing the name of the town. They wanted to call it Kissimmee, which meant Long River, after the water and lake upon which it was built. The Town Fathers, led by Billy O'Rourke, president of the Cattlemen's League, felt it in the town's best interest not to memorialize the war that had nearly destroyed America. Mary tried to quietly convince the council members to vote the idea down. In a town council meeting held in Geller's Cow Country Saloon, a bar that actually served cattlemen on horseback, in 1883 the vote was taken. The result, 33-3 in favor of the name change, and the town of Kissimmee was born. Between the pages of the diary, I found a faded, brittle receipt to Hans and Mary Christian from Allen's Mercantile, dated 1885, for a sewing machine, Stinger, Model 12K. Written across the bottom was the following notation: "No charge, Mary Bell, with congratulations on your wedding." It was simply signed J. That receipt is the reason I wrote this story, the reason winning this giveaway means so much to me. It would be like sharing something personal with my great-grandmother, Mary. The end.
Yeah, what a fabulous story, and you did it justice with the way you read it as well. It gives.
Thank you.
I kind of closed my eyes as you were reading it, and I could visualize the different things. Even my saloon, and I was thinking, now I need to actually open a saloon because, yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. That'd be a lot of fun, but.
Well, there's a little bit that goes after that, but I wanted to kind of recap this as we're getting ready to premiere this fabulous 1885 Singer 12K that now belongs to Mary Kline from Pennsylvania. And for those of you that are kind of just stepping into things or didn't have an opportunity to view those premieres, now you kind of have a perspective of the amount of creative energy that Mary Kline had to pour into creating that fabulous story that encapsulated the character and the nature of what was happening back in that time period, and tied it in beautifully to telling a factual / fictional story that really gave justice, like Bill said, to the Kissimmee, Florida area, and just the incredible beginnings of it, how it came out of the, out of the ashes, in a sense, and became such a great, thriving community like it is today. With the alligators, too, which I'm not hot to trot over that. But this really is a neat machine, and as the little history part that I'd share with you at the opening of this tells you, this is a machine that was on the scene for about 4 decades plus. So when it came on the scene with this really cool fiddle bass and just all the other character traits that were so innovative and so progressive back in the 1800s, around the Civil War period, this was just a machine that was not going to go away quick. It was going to be a machine that would capture a lot of hearts, and I know it's also captured now Mary Kline's heart as well, and she plans on using it for educational purposes. She has a number of other machines, and as she shares, and you can go back and listen to the ending part of this premiere where the winner is introduced, Mary Kline, and you can hear her talk a little bit about the educational piece that she's going to try to tie this 12K into, and just talking about the progression of sewing machines. And this obviously will be at the very beginning part of the sewing machines going back into the 1800s. And then I'm sure she'll have other machines that progress after that to give people a perspective of the innovation and the innovations that happen leading up to the machines today that a lot of people just take for granted. They always were like this. Well, no. We started way back when with chain stitching, and we went into vibrating shuttles, and we went into transverse type shuttle systems like this one, and then we went into oscillating and rotary type hook systems, and the list goes on and on and on of innovations that came about to finally get us to a point of where we are now, and having to a great degree perfected sewing machine technology where we can just take a lot of things for granted and really enjoy it. But I'll tell you one thing, as I was preparing this 12K and taking this 1885 machine through my very detailed finalization process, I really gained an appreciation for the nuances of this machine. Everything from, and I'll just kind of go around it real quick here, everything from the stitch length controller, which I had to do some work on because it's one of those sliding type stitch length controller that gets gummed up and kind of gets sticky underneath there. And so in order to make it a little bit easier for Mary to change stitch lengths, there was quite a bit of work that went into that. Also, the winding of the bobbin is very interesting on this this machine. I'll kind of move my bell after I ring it, of course. So class is officially in session now. So what I was going to show you is this has an interesting bobbin winding system where you don't have a tensioning thread guide like most machines, where you'll run the thread through it and it will help to distribute that thread evenly on that long bobbin. And long bobbins, if you're not familiar with them, this is for a different shuttle, but they kind of look like this. They almost look like a barbell, and this one has thread on it, but imagine that all the thread is off. It looks like a barbell, almost like you would use for weightlifting. And it goes right between here and here to wind it, but there isn't any thread tensioner that distributes the thread. So as you're winding the thread on this long bobbin, you have to kind of guide it with your fingers back and forth, back and forth, back and forth as you're doing it to get it evenly distributed on that long bobbin, so that when you put it into the shuttle itself, it's not going to misbehave. And then this slides in and out here, so that as you're inserting that long bobbin in, and then this is spring loaded on this side, so you have to kind of tuck it in between there, and then you have to rotate this into the balance wheel itself. See how that pivots back and forth? You have to rotate it so it makes contact with that balance wheel, and there is no way to disengage the clutch very easily, at least. So I just wound the bobbin with the machine unthreaded. But it's just a very unique way of doing it. And when you go into the shuttle system on this, it's even more unique. And I'll show that to you, see if I can show that to you. So what I was alluding to is, I'll kind of go over here. What I was alluding to is that most barbell shuttles, or vibrating shuttles as they used to be called, are going to be similar to this one right here. So you're going to have a shuttle like this, just making sure I'm on camera, and you're going to have a barbell bobbin like this inside of it, and in order to regulate tension, you'll drop your barbell bobbin inside. This thread is like 1,000 years old, so I'm not going to pull on it real hard or I'm going to break it. And then there's a little track right there. I don't know if you're able to see that. There's a little track that you kind of come down, and you pull that thread all the way down, and it just kind of goes down that track, and then eventually it goes underneath this spring. You have to, with a bobbin like this, you have to, and we're not going to be using this bobbin obviously, but you hold it with the top of your finger, you bring it down, and then you pull it back up. And again, I can't pull this because the thread is real old. But then to regulate the tension that's going to impact that top stitch, you have a screw right here that you can either turn clockwise to increase the tension if your stitches on top look loose, or you can turn it left in order to loosen it so that those stitches will lighten up a little bit, and that lock stitch will become more defined. You know, it's that old tug of war principle that I've talked about, where a shuttle like this is going to control that top stitch, and then your upper tension is going to control what happens as far as that lock stitch. And they kind of fight back and forth. But the shuttle in this 1885 12K is totally different than this bullet style shuttle that I'm showing you right now. It's totally different. And I will actually take it out to show you, because there is no spring on it like this one. that helps you to regulate and increase or decrease the tension or the pull that this shuttle is going to make. You have to thread it through a variety of different holes, and I'll show you what that looks like as best as I'm able. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to open this little door right over here so we can expose the shuttle. And I'm just going to take the little cover completely off, and I'll set it over here. And the easiest way to get a shuttle out like this, because if you have bigger hands like I do, to try to reach into this well and get your fingernail or something like that underneath the edge of the shuttle is a little bit tricky. And so what I use is I use a magnet. I just come in with a magnet like this, and since the shuttle is obviously metal, then I can just grab it, sort of grab it, hopefully grab it. Yeah, on live TV live TV and live premieres, it never goes easy, does it? It never goes easy. But we won't give up. Jeez. So you can see, I'm actually going to unthread this and then we'll pull the thread up again. But you can see what we have here, and I'll come in even closer. What we have here is we have a very different looking shuttle system. It basically looks like they cut it. It basically looks like they cut it in half, doesn't it? Where you can see the long bobbin exposed, unlike this other one that I showed you before, where it's completely encased inside. When you drop it inside, you can't see that thread really. You really can't tell how much thread you have unless you pull out that long bobbin. On this one, it's like a plate glass window without the glass, and you're able to see inside right away how much thread you have on that bobbin. And when you put the bobbin in, you want to have the thread coming underneath. So when you slide the bobbin in, and I'm actually a little bit too close in. When you slide the bobbin in, you want to make sure that that thread is coming underneath, and then you feed it through the bottom. I'm going to turn it over like this. There's these two long slats on the bottom. There they are. There's these two long slats in the bottom, and when you put the long bobbin in, you're then going to take the end of that thread and you're going to feed it through the long slat that is in the rear, which is the bottom one, and then you're going to come up and in from the bottom on the top slat. So basically thread it through the bottom on the one that's towards the rear here, and then you come back up through the one that's in the front, and then you come to the top of this long bobbin. You see how the thread kind of comes up? You then come up to the top, and you've got a total of 5 little holes. See those 5 little holes? So when you come up, after you put it through those long slats on the bottom, again, you go through the one in the rear first, you go down, and then you come up through the front slat, and then you're going to come up through the bottom of this first hole. See that first hole right there? You come up through that hole, and then the way the tension system works on this particular shuttle is the more holes that you thread the thread through, the more tension or drag that you're going to create, and it would be the equivalent of turning that screw to the right clockwise to increase the pull of this shuttle. So you can see right now I came up through that first hole, and I went down the second hole, and then I came up the third hole. Yep, I came up the third hole, and then I went over to the fourth hole and went down again, and then you always have to end on the up, the furthest one on the right. You have to end on that in having the thread come up so that it'll pull the thread up, if that makes sense. So again, it's a little bit confusing, I'll tell you. So again, when you put the bobbin in, have the thread coming underneath, like you can see it. You go through the rear slat, with bringing the thread down through it. Then you come up through the front slat. Then you come up through the first hole here on my far left. And then depending on how much tension you want to create, if you want less tension, then you would skip that second hole. I went through that second hole, went down through it. You would skip that second hole, and let's say you would go down that third hole, then you would have less tension and less drag to pull down on that top stitch. But that's basically the way this works. The holes serve as the equivalent of that leaf tension spring to create more drag and more tension to increase the pull that this shuttle has to create that top stitch. Isn't that interesting? It's interesting and a little bit unique, isn't it? And this is unique too, being able to see right away how much thread you have. There's no total bullet style shuttle concealing the thread content. You've got it, visible right away when you take the shuttle out. So that's just a quick explanation on that. I wanted to explain that just so that Mary Kline, when she gets this and she has to rethread this thing, she's not like, oh my gosh. Because when you read the directions, let me just set this down real quick. When you read the directions, and I got Mary an original, owner's manual. It's actually a reprint, but it's got all the original content. And when you read some of the explanations in this for the Singer 12K family sewing machine, it just makes you, what? What? What do they say? Like, for example, here. Let me read one of these, because they're all worded in somewhat of a confusing way. See where it is. Here we go. To thread the shuttle. Let me read this one right up here on top. It's on page 4. And then you'll see why what I explained, even though I probably didn't explain it flawlessly, it probably made a lot more sense than if you had just read this text summary and tried to figure it out from that. So having removed the bobbin from the spool winder, take it between the thumb and finger of the right hand, being careful that the thread is over the bobbin towards the hand. At the same time, take the shuttle in the fingers of the left with its point towards the hand. Place one end of the bobbin in the spring centra in the end of the shuttle cavity next to the point and gently press the other end into its place. Pass the thread through the bottom long slot in at the upper slot and thence over to the tension holes, passing it through the one nearest the blunt end first, then through as many holes as may be necessary to obtain the tension required, always finishing, however, by passing it through the hole nearest to the point, either from the inside outward or from the outside inward. In the latter case, pass it through the slot below, and finally, in every case, under the spring. What? What? I mean, you recently may have seen the premiere with John Smith, who worked at NASA. I'll bet you the NASA manuals that people had to read to fly the shuttles in that probably weren't as confusing as what I just tried to read to you out of the original owner's manual. So that's why I wanted to explain it, so that hopefully it made a little bit more sense than what the manual does. Once you get the handle of it and you read what's in the manual, then it probably makes a little bit more sense. But otherwise, you're like scratching your head going, I have no idea at all what they just said. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and put this shuttle back in Mary Kline's machine. And again, there's no magical way to get it in there. But when you put it into the carriage, basically, that's gonna hold this, you want to put the point down first and kind of line it up there, and then you just, and I'm not able to do this without getting my big hands in the way. Then you kind of just lower it into the well, and there's a little spring right here on the back that kind of holds it in place. And then we'll go ahead and put the door back on, the little cover. Make sure my thread is clear, and now we'll see if we can draw this thread back up so we can get into doing a couple of stitch offs with Mary's 12K from 1885. But first of all, I want to put on a little bit of music as a background. I can find some music. No, that's not what I wanted. All right, let's try this instead. Kind of like high seas music here. High seas music. Okay, and like most machines, you're going to turn the balance wheel towards you in order to draw this thread up. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of widen the shot a little bit so you can kind of see the way that you'll be able to just barely catch a glimpse of that shuttle kind of moving. I'll open this a little bit more so you can see that, where it's going to swing to the left, and then the needle should be able to pull that thread up so we can be in a position to do some sewing. And always hold your thread in the back that's coming off of the needle as you rotate it down. So, all right, let's see what happens. This should be exciting. Can't see if my arm's in the way. And there we go, as easy as that. We just pulled that thread up from the shuttle through the needle hole by the throat plate. So now we're going to go ahead and close our little door over the top of the shuttle, and I'm going to rotate this machine around. But before I do that, I'm also going to show you some of the stitching that I did in finalizing this machine and some of the challenges I had with it. Just to give you an idea that I don't sit down magically and the machine sews beautifully the first time. There's sometimes a couple of steps that have to be involved in getting it right. Let me turn my screen around and I'll try to show you kind of what I'm talking about here. So the first one I'm going to show you is the stitch off that was actually underneath the presser foot when this machine was shipped to me. And if you're new to this channel, if you don't remember the story behind this, I actually ordered this 12K from a gentleman over in the United Kingdom. I did quite a bit of chatting and communication with him to get details about the machine, the history of it, the maintenance, the provenance, all of that. And eventually I was convinced that it was a good solid machine that I could work with and that I could add to my personal collection. And so I ended up purchasing the machine. It was shipped from the United Kingdom all the way to Oconto, Wisconsin at the workshop. And I started to spend a little bit of time exploring it. Not a lot of time because I had a lot of machines that belonged to customers that I was working on. So, but as we were approaching this idea, the contest for Kissimmee, Florida, and I learned about when did this place come into existence? When was Kissimmee, Florida incorporated? And we discovered that there were only 2 years difference between the year of my 1885 12K and the incorporation date of Kissimmee, Florida. So at that point I decided, okay, I'm not going to keep this for myself. I'm going to use it as the giveaway prize for whoever wins it, which you know now is Mary Kline. Blah, 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 blah. So at any rate, as I ramble on, my point is this, that this was the sew-off that was underneath the presser foot when I got the machine from the United Kingdom. Not horribly impressive stitch quality. The stitch on top is not bad, but when you look to the back, it's kind of undefined and just kind of looks, it doesn't look really pretty. and the 12K is capable of sewing some really decent looking stitches. So I started messing around with you know, the tension discs, the hook timing, and everything else, and some of that went pretty good. I started to get some better stitch output. A little bit hard to see with my pink thread, I know, but I was still having issues with the lock stitch tension, as you can see on the back. It was still really, it wasn't sewing like it was supposed to be sewing. It was coming out kind of wonky. So then I got a little bit anxious, I got a little bit impatient, and I made some more drastic changes. And the top stitch started to come into form for the most part, depending on how I did it. Here it was a little bit rougher, but depending on what I did, it was coming into better form. But then I had issues with the take-up lever, the take-up arm, in bringing that thread back up to a position, and I started getting stuff like this. One step forward, 3 steps back. It was really like, oh my gosh, it shouldn't be this difficult. But after a lot of persistence and a little bit more patience, I was finally able to get what I think is a good quality stitch from Mary's 12K. And I think it'll be fun to demonstrate I'm only going to do a couple of sew-offs on this machine. I'm going to do some of my vinyl that is kind of a leather alligator look to it, and then I'm also going to do some genuine elk hide as well. You can see that over here. And I'll change the stitch variation a little bit, so you'll be able to see, you know, well, you already can see that over here, kind of behind the bobbin winder, is that stitch selector for changing stitch length. I'll kind of rotate that in a little bit. It still may be hard to see, but we'll go ahead and shorten that stitch quite a bit and just give it a totally different look. All right, let me lock that in place. Turn my screen around. And I think the first thing we'll sew is some of this real tricky vinyl stuff. I've sewn this on other premieres before. You've seen this stuff. And you can just tell by the texture of it that it is not a material that enjoys being dominated by the needle. And we're going to go through 2 thicknesses of it, which is probably the equivalent of about 4 or 5 ounces of material. And if you can look on the back side of it, it's got kind of a felty, stretchy back that really makes it difficult to pierce through. Especially when you're talking about a vintage machine like this that was designed for family use, and probably they didn't have in mind that people would be doing sewing like this and trying to sew heavy grade vinyl, commercial grade vinyl, really, that is some pretty tricky stuff, even for more contemporary motorized machines, let alone a hand crank. Okay, I'm trying to get my thread straight here. There, I think I got it. So I'm going to get this into position. We'll crank off some stitches and see how Mary Kline's 1885 Singer 12K does with this task. And again, we're going to be starting with a longer stitch, and then I will change it up and go to a shorter stitch, just so you can see the stitch range that this 12K has. And I think it's impressive, considering you're talking about a machine that is coming from the mid to latter part of the 1800s. It really does a fabulous job. Okay, so here we go, and I will be quiet so you can listen to this machine operate. Okay, here we go. Okay. Oh, and a little tip here, and I started to actually do it wrong on a habit. Because this particular machine with its needle is centered so that you're going to be threading from front to back. When you pull this material after you've done a line of stitches, pull it to the rear of the machine, and you'll just find that it works a lot better than if you're pulling it to the left or pulling it to the front. So I'm going to go ahead and clip those threads, and we'll see how Mary's machine did on this first sew off with this 2 layers of this vinyl leather type material. I'm trying to see how far you are away so you can, I'll turn it like this so we can see it here. So this is our top stitch. Where am I? This is our top stitch. And actually the stitch definition is quite fabulous. The spacing, here I'll actually come in a little bit closer. Oops, wrong way. The spacing, the formation of it, of the stitch itself is really excellent. It's well defined, it's consistent from start to finish. Kind of looking over my shoulder here. As I turn it over, there's no difference with the lock stitch. From start to finish, we've got a beautiful, where am I? There it is. We've got a beautiful lock stitch as well. Good stitch definition, the spacing, the formation is exactly as it should be. Looks like we had a little bit of a hiccup right there in the middle, but it may have been the way I was cranking it. But all in all, a beautiful, beautiful stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and clip our threads, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change our stitch length down considerably, and we're going to lay down a stitch just so you can see from a standpoint of perspective the difference and the range that this 12K is able to do. So let me get this back underneath the presser foot. And I'm going to change our stitch length from where it's at right now, which is going to be right around probably 6 stitches per inch. And I'm going to slide it all the way down. See if I can get it to slide all the way down. It's still a little bit stubborn when it comes to sliding it, but it's gotten a lot better. So I'm going to slide it quite a ways down. And the way this stitch length controller works over here, I'm going to kind of change the camera angle and let you see it now where I've moved it. The way this works is the further you move it to the left, you can see we were way to the right before on this stitch length controller, and now I moved it down to right around by 7. The further you move it to the left, if you move it way to the left, then you're going to get a teeny tiny little stitch. But even now on 7, you're going to see that we get a stitch that's considerably shorter than the first one that we sewed off. You kind of see those stitches to the left there, and once I start to crank this off, look at how much we've reduced the size of that stitch. And again, remember the technology of when this machine came out, you know, early 1800s. I don't remember the specific date that I quoted at the beginning, but it's very early 1800s, and they were way ahead of their time as far as how this machine performed. And that's why it was in production for around 40 years. Okay, so here we go, and we're going to be right around probably 15 to 20 stitches per inch. Here we go. All right, so let's take a look at this now. And again, pull the material to the back. And if you need to rock the balance wheel just gently, just don't rock it too much as you're pulling, because then you could end up using the needle as a striker against your presser foot as the needle kind of flexes a little bit as you're pulling that thread. So just be mindful of that. All right, so I'm going to slide that underneath. And let's take a look and see what kind of stitch output we got this time from a size standpoint. I think you're going to notice the difference right away. Boy, it's so quiet in the workshop, isn't it? It's so quiet! Put on the Drunken Sailor. This stuff kind of flexes. I'm trying to bend it back. Okay, hopefully that's the right angle. Hopefully that's the right angle. Look at those stitches on the bottom. Yeah, that was our little hiccup right there. All right, let me turn it over and we'll look at the lock stitch. Look at the range of that stitch length. It's fantastic for an 1885 machine. All right, so our lock stitch now. You can see our first stitch row on top is the first one we did. Beautiful stitching. Well, look at the stitches on the bottom. Try to get my camera to stay steady. Look at the stitches on the bottom in contrast with the ones on top as far as the stitch length. Just a dramatic range that this 1885 12K has. We're not down to a satin stitch, but we're pretty doggone close on that bottom row. And we still have a lot more that we can push that control lever to the left. And this material is not an easy material to sew at all. Because of its rubbery nature, because it's a vinyl, because it has that stretch factor. And let's just face it, the feed dog design back in the 1800s was probably not as improved as it is now. And yet this 1885 12K did a fabulous job of moving that material, a material like this that is extremely tricky and slippery, over the feed dogs, and gave us a very, very lovely long stitch and a near satin stitch on the bottom. I just think those stitches on the bottom are fabulous. I mean, the top ones are too, but when you look at just the precision and the detail of those stitches on the bottom, they're almost a pearlized type stitch. Just gorgeous. And maybe it's the color of the thread, maybe that enhances it, but beautiful stitching with this first sew off of this very difficult, stretchy vinyl material. 2 layers of it with this 1885 12K that belongs to Mary Kline now. So let me move this out of the way, and we're going to see how this machine does on some heavy grade leather. And if you're new to the channel and you've never seen me sew this genuine elk hide, it is the thick of thick. This is some intense stuff, probably about 4 or 5 ounces of heavy grade leather. I'll kind of zoom in on it that you can get a better perspective of the thickness of it and the density of the material. It's some intense stuff. It just is. Get that adjusted a little bit. Okay, a little bit more high C's type music, I think. see what we got. So the last one I did was called Drunken Sailor. The one before that was called The Battle of 1066. And this one is called The Awakening. The Awakening. And I had not specifically tested this genuine elk hide with this 1885, so I'm hoping that she does. I know she can do it, but we'll see how she does as far as this transverse type shuttle system, being able to manage pulling that thread up through leather as thick as this. Look at that from the side. It's like a belt. We're sewing a belt with this 1885 Singer 12K to some very dramatic music, nonetheless. Let me turn this down a little bit. But it's perfect music as we take a deep breath and keep our fingers crossed that Mary's 1885 machine is able to handle this, because all the guy did from England when he shipped it over is he had some real light cotton material like this. And again, that's the kind of stitching that he got from this machine. Nothing horribly bragworthy. Nothing horribly bragworthy. So we're going to see how this fantastic hand crank does with a task like this. All right, take a deep breath. Here we go. Oh, I forgot to change it back. Ah! Okay, I'll go down a short row and then we'll come back a long row maybe. Okay, so I forgot to adjust the stitch length, so we're still down around 15 to 20 stitches per inch, which, if you know anything about sewing a chemically processed dense leather like this, being able to sew a stitch length this short, this tight on material like this that has a high piercing threshold is no small accomplishment. So my mistake is actually highlighting even more how well Mary's machine is doing. It's really fabulous. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to go ahead and lift our presser foot. I'm going to rotate this material around, and now I'm going to do what I should have done before, but I'm going to do it with a needle up, so bear with me for a second. And I'm going to go ahead and adjust our stitch length back, so we're going to get a much longer stitch going back the other way. And if you can see how that material is kind of moving, that's part of the reason I wanted to raise that needle up, so I wasn't going to potentially bend this needle. This does take a specialized needle. It's going to be a 12 by 1 needle. And I should have mentioned that earlier. And again, you're going to thread this machine from the front to the back, and it doesn't have a flat side. And I'll rotate the machine a little bit, and I'll show you one other semi-tricky thing about this machine. But first of all, let's finish this final stitch off. Again, we sewed down this genuine elk hide with a stitch of about 15 to 20 stitches per inch. Incredibly intense test of Mary Kline's machine. Now we're going to come back this way, and we're going to be sewing a stitch that's going to be right around probably 5 to 6 stitches per inch. So keep your fingers crossed. Again, both of these sew-offs is not an easy task as far as what we've been able to accomplish successfully. And no, I'm not going to close the box. I'm not going to close the box. So again, draw the material to the rear and just watch that needle, that you don't catch the needle. Beautiful stitching. I'm looking at it already on this genuine elk hide, and again, we're talking about an 1885 machine that was designed for family sewing. family sewing. It really wasn't designed, the cobbler machine was designed back in the day as a machine that would be sewing leather like this. Not this 1885 12K. Just that was never in their mind. That simply was not in their mind as what it was designed to be doing. It was going to be sewing cotton. It was going to be sewing some lighter fabrics in a household setting. So we really are kind of pushing the limits a little bit on this 12K. But hey, where are you at? You're at Scott's Workshop. That's what we do here. We push the limits all the time. So let's see how this machine did on this very thick layer of genuine elk hide. So our first stitch across, where are we? Yep, we did the bottom one first. We'll go that direction. So our first one across the bottom right here, if I can keep this camera moving smoothly, is this 15 to 20 stitches per inch. And we have absolute perfection. You can always see it more clearly when we go vertical. I'm going to go across that bottom one more time. The formation, the stitch quality is just spectacular. And then I made the turn and I decided to continue with that 15 to 20 stitches per inch. Look at just how perfect that stitching is. So much better defined than the stitching that was on that sample that my friend from the United K sent with this machine. Don't you agree? Look at the stitch definition there and then look back in your mind as far as the stitch off I showed you on a real light cotton material that this gentleman had sent with the machine. And you can readily see after this machine went through the finalization process, the stitch definition, the stitch quality, the stitch formation is light years beyond where it was. Light years. And not through a light material. Look at that leather again from the side. Absolutely crazy. And then I corrected my, I'll just say it, I corrected my error in not wanting to do 5 to 6 stitches per inch, or not wanting to do 15 to 20 stitches per inch like these. And I increased the stitch length closer to 5 to 6 stitches per inch. And the machine did not miss a beat. Did not miss a beat. And again, a very thick material. So let me turn it over and we'll look at that. We'll look at that lock stitch that this 12K just did on this heavy genuine elk hide, and we'll see how the lock stitch. Again, the lock stitch is a lot harder to do when it comes to getting clear stitch definition. It just is, because you're fighting gravity as that thread is being pulled back up through the material. And so you tend to get less stitch definition with that lock stitch. But not the case with Mary's 12K. Even through this nap, if I go real slow, it's hard to see, but the stitch quality, even on that lock stitch, for this heavy grade genuine elk hide, is absolutely spot on. I could pull it apart a little bit and show you. Matter of fact, why don't I do that? And you can catch a glimpse of that upper row that we did with the longer stitch as I'm getting the camera set up to do this. Let me flip that screen around and you can take a look. I'll do my best to pull it back and give you a clearer look of that teeny tiny stitch that we did, near satin stitch on the bottom. Where am I? There we go. So if I kind of pull it back, you can really start to see those stitches popping through much more clearly. It's just the nature of the nap of the leather. See how they pop through when I pull that leather back? And all of a sudden is revealed is the perfection of how well Mary's machine did with a task as difficult as this. Again, we're talking about 15 to 20 stitches per inch with heavy grade genuine elk hide. Definitely not an easy task by any stretch of the imagination, and yet this machine did Just a fabulous job. Isn't that gorgeous? A near satin stitch through 4 to 5 ounces of genuine elk hide. That is no small task at all. Beautiful stitching. Beautiful stitching. I'll kind of rotate it like this and we'll look at that bottom row where we turned. Where am I? Look at that bottom row where we turned as well. Absolutely spot on. So now we'll finally look at that top row where I changed the stitch length closer to probably around 5 to 6 stitches per inch. Where am I? There I am. And there as well, we've got just an absolute brag-worthy stitch. I'm a little bit dyslexic today. I can't figure out which way to rotate this. So this is a definite pass as well when it comes to sewing both a very, very tiny stitch, close to a satin stitch, probably around 15 to 20 stitches per inch, and then doing this other row of about 5 to 6 stitches per inch, and just getting a fabulous outcome. Here you can see that lock stitch with the larger stitch even more clearly as I'm pulling it back. So I'm really pleased with how Mary's machine did with a task like this. Both of these materials are super tricky materials to get really good stitch quality from, because the one is real stretchy and it tends to manipulate the output of the stitch. The other one has an incredibly dense piercing threshold, that genuine elk hide. So we really have tested this 12K to the extreme with two very difficult sew-offs that show that it is battle ready now to go to work for Mary Kline out in Pennsylvania. And I just want to again congratulate Mary in winning the contest. As you heard in her reading, and just the perspective of Hans and Bill and myself, she really did a fabulous job in writing a creative piece that was based on fact and fiction, and I think really just captured the hearts of everyone that read it, and really captured the perspective as well of kind of the mystery behind the founding of Kissimmee, Florida. So this is a great way to wrap it up, kind of just doing these two sew-offs and showing this machine now operational and ready to become a part of the teaching tools that Mary Kline is going to use out in Pennsylvania, both with her immediate family, her friends, and others that might have the opportunity just to see that continuum of sewing machines, with this probably being at the very early stages, 1885, and then all the other machines that she's going to show after that to show the progression of innovations, changes, technology that these machines went through. So congratulations, Mary, on winning this fabulous 1885 Singer 12K. I know it's going to serve you well, and along with the owner's manual, which is a little bit confusing, quite honestly, the way they wrote it, but it is what it is. I'm sure that you'll be able to figure things out and really put this to the test. And obviously, when it arrives, it's already going to be threaded up. And speaking of that, let me come off the tripod real quick. I wanted to show you one other thing that is unique about this machine. I almost forgot. And that is that most machines, when you put the needle into the needle socket to slide the needle in, there's going to be a built-in stop point. On this particular machine, there is no stop point. So you have to kind of estimate. I'm going to bring the needle down a little bit so you can see. And that was part of the troubleshooting that I was doing. That was part of the troubleshooting that I was doing when I showed you those different sew-offs that had all kinds of interesting outcomes. I had outcomes like, again, like this. As I was messing around with adjusting hook timing, as I was changing how much that needle was extending down into the hook area, I was getting all kinds of interesting, see that? All kinds of interesting outcomes. That's the troubleshooting process of figuring out a machine like this. And then I started to have more success in getting more consistent stitches with the top and the lock stitch. But a lot of that stemmed from, here's my other one too. A lot of that stemmed from the fact that back in the 1800s, look at that one. A lot of that stemmed from back in the 1800s. Some of these things were not as clear as they are now. So, and that includes here where you're having to set the needle. And normally you would just slide the needle in as far as you can, and it's going to hit a little stopper, which is basically a little pin that they put on the needle bar so that you can't slide the needle any further past that pin. But on this one, there is no pin. There's no stop point. You could slide this needle another 4 or 5 millimeters up easily, or you could pull it down 3 or 4 millimeters as well. So after a lot of testing, troubleshooting, success and failure, this is a real sweet spot right here where it generally does a very, very good job. And I'll kind of just zoom in on it a little bit more so that Mary Kline and others that own a 12K can look at this and at least it might give them, a perspective of where that needle needs to be in relation to its position on the needle bar. Does that make sense? And I would say if you can't see in, in perspective to this shot I'm giving you right now, I'll show you from a caliper standpoint of how far that is above this little round piece right here that acts as a needle clamp. So with my caliper, I'll show you how far it is above, which is going to come out to being about, hold on a second, between 4 to 5 millimeters is what I would estimate. That's going to be about 4 or 5, where am I? That's going to be about 4 or 5 millimeters right there. See where that gap point is? In relation to where that needle is on the needle bar. Once I find the needle bar. This camera does not like getting close. So again, this is going to be your screw over here that you have to loosen. Right where my finger is. You'll loosen that screw with a standard screwdriver, and then you'll have to orientate the needle so that you're threading it from front to back, so the holes are going to be obviously, let me lower that presser foot. The hole is going to be towards the front, so you can thread it from front to back, and the long groove on the needle is going to be facing the front as well. I don't know if you can see that, the thread kind of hides it a little bit, but the long groove faces the front of the machine as well when you're threading it and setting the needle. Let me real quick show you the threading of this machine. It's fairly straightforward, but there are a couple little spots that make it a little bit more tricky. So coming off the top of the machine, you're going to come off the spool. You're going to come through this thread guide right here, and you can see that you'll have to kind of come between the goalposts, and then the thread kind of seats right there and right there. It then comes down across the front of the faceplate, and it goes through the tension discs, which are these right here. And to increase or decrease your upper tension, let's say your lock stitch is a little bit loose. If you want to increase it, you're going to turn the adjuster to the right, and to lessen it, you're going to turn it to the left, and that will either increase or decrease the pressure on these two discs right here. Okay? And this is the control right up here that does that. You either rotate this down or you rotate it to the left so that it puts more pressure down and creates more tension on those discs right here. And then after you come through the discs, you're then going to come across the faceplate up to your take-up arm. And this is actually pretty progressive. It actually has a little slot, so you don't have to thread it to the end. You can just bring it right over the top, depending on where your needle bar is at the time. Then it'll expose this little slat, and then you just slide the thread right through there, and then you come straight down the faceplate. And this is the only semi-tricky spot, is you'll draw the thread. See that little cut in the circle right there? See that little cut? You have to kind of draw the thread into that cut. It's actually an opening. And then you have to tuck the thread over this little thread guide pin right here on top. So you come from the top down through the slat, over the top of this pin, and then you pull it down so that it's actually, let me show you, it's actually tucked in there. It's tucked behind the pin, and it goes through that slat. Make sense? And then you come straight down from there, and then you're going to be threading the needle again from front to back with the long groove of the needle facing the front. Okay? So that's in a nutshell, really. And you'll notice that in order to maintain the authentic, weathered, distressed look of a machine that is basically, what is that, from 1885 to 2020, what is that, about 140 years old, 145 years old? You can do the math and type it in the chat. But we're looking at a machine that is I mean, well beyond a centennial machine. It's like 140, 145 years old. So I didn't want to do a thing in taking away the weathered look of some of the patina. I wanted to leave it, but I did enhance other areas like the medallion on the front, and then I did do some touch up on the balance wheel. You may be able to see that, just because the balance wheel is one of those things that you're going to be handling all the time, and I didn't want the paint flecks and the chipping to get, you know, on Mary Kline's projects or to get on her hands or something like that. So I gave it a very nice finished coating on there, on the balance wheel itself. All right, is there anything I forgot? I'm trying to remember if there's anything I forgot. I think I covered pretty much everything. Again, I think it's a fabulous machine. It really is a machine that was well ahead of its time. And to last 40 years on the market, you know, as machine technology was racing forward in that time period, is really, I think, a feather in the cap of Isaac Singer and the team that developed this incredible 12K. So, Mary, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you will when you receive the machine. I hope you will take time to get it set up and then give us a picture or two or three of it set up in your sewing room, and maybe even if you want to crank a couple of stitches off or something like that, or whatever, and I'll get those posted on Facebook so that people, as they're watching what you were able to win and what you were able to accomplish through your creative piece as we're coming up on this next contest of 9,000 subscribers. And by the way, we're only about 80 subscribers away right now from that next major giveaway where I'm going to be giving away a Swedish Beauty. So when you can look at a machine like this that is going to be mailed off, it's going to Mary Kline, other than her sweat and tears that went into that wonderful piece that she read during this premiere again as I played it back. She isn't going to have to invest a penny in the machine or the shipping or anything. I'm going to send it to her free of charge. And the same thing will be true for the next giveaway when I give away Swedish Beauty. If you're within the United States, everything excluding Alaska and Hawaii, and they can win as well, but they have to share the cost of shipping because it's just more expensive to ship to those 2 states. It just is. And the same thing with international winners as well. If they win, they're going to have to share the cost of that shipping. But everyone else, if you live in Pennsylvania like Mary Kline and you win the next contest, you're going to get a Swedish Beauty free of charge, including the shipping. How cool is that? So get yourself out of the shadows. Step out of the shadows. Sharpen your pencil. Sharpen your wit. Sharpen your creativity, because very soon we're going to be traveling to the beautiful country of Norway to participate in a contest that Hans has been integral in working with me in developing. And I know you don't want to miss that. Okay? So God bless. Stay tuned for other great premieres like this where you can see the cool stuff that people can win when they step out of the shadows and they share their talent in writing a creative piece about Kissimmee, Florida, a steamboat captain, and all the other fun stuff that Mary pulled out of her hat to win this contest and to win this 1885 Singer 12K. Take care, everybody.